Without further ado, we're going to introduce our first speaker, Professor Scott Gottfried. He's from the Political Science Department here at Laney College. He's going to be talking about the Electoral College. Is the Electoral College democratic?
Nice to see you all. So the question at hand is whether or not the Electoral College is democratic. And I'll just give you the spoiler alert right now. No, it is not. So we're going to discuss why that is, how that is, and I'm also going to talk about a couple of ways that we can potentially sidestep the Electoral College. So who here knows what I'm talking about when I say the Electoral College, just by a show of hands? A few of you? So specifically what I'm talking about is how we elect a president in the United States. So the founders of the United States created a constitution in which they wanted the citizens of the United States, at that time people who looked like me, white, middle-class, land-owning men, they wanted those people to have a degree of power, but they also wanted to make sure that citizens didn't have too much power. So within the Constitution, what they did is they embedded a lot of ways to prevent the people from having too much power. And many of those are still with us today, including the Electoral College. So how we actually elect people, or presidents I should say, in the United States is we voters don't elect them directly, but we actually vote for what are called electors in each state. So problems with the system. Originally, what the Electoral College did was it inflated the amount of power for states that had large populations of enslaved people, and today it actually inflates the political power for people who live in less populated states, and by extension disempowers those of us who live in more populated states, specifically California, the most populated state in the United States. So to understand how this all works, I'm just going to talk about Congress for a moment, because this is all connected to how our Congress is structured. So the Constitution creates what's called a bicameral Congress, in which we have a Senate and we also have a House of Representatives. And the Senate is based on, quote, equal representation. I use air quotes for equal because what it means is regardless of how many people live in your state, each state gets the same number of senators, 2. The House of Representatives is based on what we call proportional representation. So based on the number of people that live in your state, you get a certain number of House members. So in the state of California, for example, we have 53, because we're the most populated state. There are some very small states that only have 1. So, going back to 1789. So this idea of proportional representation in the House, at this time in 1789, there were approximately 750,000 enslaved people living in the United States. And who here knows how enslaved people were counted in terms of representation? Yes? 3/5, good. So what was called the 3/5 compromise was used to count enslaved people in terms of House members. And this inflated the political power in states that had large slave populations. Now, electors for the Electoral College are granted to each state by adding the number of House members each state has, plus the number of senators. So in California, for example, we have 53 House members and 2 senators, which means we have a total of 55 electoral votes. So going back to 1789, this 3/5 compromise, what it meant was that it also inflated the number of electors states with large slave populations would get, which is why 4 of the first 5 presidents of the United States come from Virginia, a state with a very large slave population. Today, ironically, it isn't the House of Representatives that creates a problem, it's actually the Senate. So again, each state gets 2 senators regardless of the population. So California, we have approximately 40 million people who live in the state of California. Again, we have 53 House members and 2 senators, which gives us 55 electoral votes, which means that for every 730,000 people in California, we get 1 electoral vote. Now, if we look at the least populated state in the United States, Wyoming has only 570,000 people in the entire state. They get 1 House member and 2 senators, which gives them a total of 3 electoral votes. Now, if you do some very basic, simple mathematics, you find that every 190,000 people get an electoral vote in the state of Wyoming, which means that a voter in that state has 3.8 times as much influence on a presidential election as a voter in the state of California. Wyoming, a state that is much whiter, much older, and yes, more conservative. So this has benefited 2 of our recent presidents. George W. Bush lost the popular vote by 500,000 people, but actually wound up winning the presidency. Does anyone know how many popular votes our current president lost by? 3 million!
Wow.
3 million! 3 million more people in the United States voted for his opponent than our current president, yet because of this system, he is our president. So, how do we solve this problem? There's a couple of ways. One is really difficult, and that is through a constitutional amendment. One way is through a constitutional amendment. The other way is through what's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which is basically a situation in which 11 states so far have signed up to say that they will give all of their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. California is one of those states. And when 270 electoral votes are accrued, that will go into effect. So we still need, I think it's about 111 more electoral votes. So what you can do is, if you know somebody who lives in a state that has not yet signed on to this, I recommend just going online and Googling it. If you know somebody who lives in those states, I would recommend you ask them to take action in their state. And that is all my time for now, so thank you.
That's one thing I never understood was the electoral college democratic. I still don't understand it, but I hope y'all got some knowledge from that. So I don't know how y'all feel today, but I feel powerful because I'm like standing in front of local celebrities in their own right. All these people on this panel are fighting for advocacy. They're community organizers. They're on the front line. But next, I'm going to introduce Gloria Sandoval. She's coming all the way from Merced, so y'all give her a hand clap for that one. Ms. Sandoval is actually the president of the Central Valley Journey for Justice and Tribunal El Pueblo. Editorial board member, excuse my Spanish, I'm trying to get better at that. And she's also written for the Merced Sun Star, and she's on the front line when it comes to community organizing. I want to give a quote that she said in an article about children. She gave a quote in an article about children, immigrant children, and she said, something that most of the general public does not understand is why these children flee their home countries, and it's because they have very limited opportunities. Now think about that, limited opportunities. We all are here for the opportunities, and these children are fleeing to America for more opportunities, just like everybody else deserves in this country. So y'all give a warm welcome to Ms. Gloria Sandoval.
one-way street. You guys gotta fix that by Laney College. I almost killed, you see Merced graduate here, they're just starting her life. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. I was a little jittery when I came in, but next time I come, I hope that's fixed, all right? This is the newspaper, and I put it in the back. It's called the Tribuno del Pueblo, and I'm on the editorial board. And actually, right now, I'm a member of the California Central Valley Journey for Justice, but I'm still working like an organizer there. I have been in movements and organizations for over 50 years. And I have 8 grandkids, so things are possible. You gotta just line it up. One of the things that I want to discuss a little bit about what's going on with immigration, because immigration isn't just in the United States, it's happening all over the world. Sometimes I think we have selective vision or hearing. We only listen to certain bits and only certain things are covered in the corporate media, and that's why I really want to stress that you read the People's Tribune and the Tribuno del Pueblo, and you also send in your own stories. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss, I know it's too long to discuss it all, but I did bring, there's a who's behind ICE. ICE is Immigration Control Enforcement. It is an agency under Homeland Security. It's only existed like for 13 years, yet it has one of the biggest budgets ever. And it is a rapid response type of agency that hunts down people. They're profiling, they're incarcerating people. Now, so we have black and brown people and other poor folks that are incarcerated, but now we have detention centers. We have converted Walmarts. We have places that are being built that banks are bankrolling to have people incarcerated as young as 2-year-olds. And that's with our tax money. Okay, so I hope that you pay attention, because usually people will pay attention when it involves money. Anybody here rich that you can afford this education and be in a nice little housing and all? Well, immigrants, the last real immigration law that helped people here was in 1986. And that only helped half of the people that were in this country undocumented. They talk about it's between 8 and 11 million people, but those people have had U.S. born children, into the millions, right? So, humans are humans, right? You're gonna appropriate, and there's gonna be more. So, it is a messy little problem for our president to try to deport so many people. They're not gonna do it, but meantime, they're making money. They're making money off people that are poor, that are coming from other countries that do not have enough for them. They'll look for survival. Wouldn't you move to another state? Wouldn't you move to another country to guarantee your survival? And that's what they're doing. But we're being brainwashed to believe that you shouldn't cross the border because you don't have our permission to cross the border. Well, how? You're going to do it, if it means your survival. So we have people, actually the remittances from people that are from Mexico, this is all people that are connected, not just undocumented. It's the second source of income for Mexico, the remittances sent over there. Wow. And you find, if you dig into Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala, you're going to find similar things. So what is this president doing now? He's canceling a program called Temporary Protective Status, TPS, which people have been given an opportunity when they've had hurricanes or they've had earthquakes or they've had disasters, natural disasters in their countries. Our country has been humanitarian. They have said, yes, come over, we'll give you permission to be here, to work until things get better. Well, you know what? Trump doesn't care if things are getting better or not in his countries. He's canceling that. Right now, there are 40,000 asylum people that are requesting asylum from those countries right at our border, on the other side of our border, more on the side of Mexico border. So why did Mexico agree to allow people to wait there for their turn? Because Trump started threatening Mexico with tariffs on imported products. When we talk about the economy, the connectedness, of our economy with the whole world, what do we do with China? What's China doing back? Okay, there are certain things that aren't being treated in a humane way or in a way that would be helpful for countries all around. Now, I told you a little bit about who's behind ICE. If you look up and if you're really interested into who is bankrolling the whole thing about detentions, the whole thing about for every prison or detention centers, you got to have somebody provide the food. Well, that's money that's come from our pocket too, and all that, even for even the telephones and. This is a report that was obtained by the ACLU. Merced City was one of 80 cities that was sharing data. This is at the surveillance level now. We have automated license plate readers, and all these sheriffs and all these cities and all these departments were tapping into that. So we are also dealing with a different level. Our city got $4.5 million supposedly for stopping gang violence. Well, now they've got the mechanisms, to support the police departments. These two things, the matter that ICE, the issue of immigration, the safety of our communities are all tied together. I just have one thing that, because I know I'm there already. I wanted to mention to you a poem. It's a Mayan poem, very short. It's called In La Quech, and I'll read it in Spanish and English. It says, Tú eres mi otro yo, you are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, if I do harm to you, me hago daño a mí mismo, I do harm to myself. Si te amo y respeto, if I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. So it's something that says, you are my mirror self. We might look different, but we're in this together. We live in this world together. Please care, ask questions, look up some of this stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was Gloria Sandoval from the Central Valley Journey for Justice and the Tribuno del Pueblo. Do we have any copies of the Tribuno del Pueblo here? Are they up so at the literature table, the Tribuno del Pueblo is a bilingual paper geared towards immigrants and the Latino population. But it's bilingual, everyone can read it. There's an announcement. There's a clipboard somewhere out here. Did you find it? Please do sign in. If you haven't signed in, they're going to be passing a clipboard around, so please do sign in. We're going to actually have an immigrant student speak next. His name is Amilcar Garcia. Amilcar is a member of the Poor People's Campaign, the Laney Poor People's Campaign Teaching Committee, and he's helped to plan these events, and he's going to say a few words about his experiences.
Hello, everyone. Not one more deportation, not one more separation. As an immigrant myself, I've been in the position to run with the less fortunate side of the coin. Because of paperwork, delays, I too ended up working on somebody's house, dragging myself from basements full of raccoon and rat feces in order to help support my household. I was underpaid and I was undervalued. My paperwork eventually arrived, but some other people that I have worked next to haven't been that lucky and probably never will. I could go about my particular story, but I would rather focus on the many brothers and sisters stories that happen everywhere, every day. For example, Joaquin Sotelo Starin's case. This is a veteran from 2001 to 2006. He was in Iraq, he was in Kuwait and Afghanistan. And just because he had a felony, he was almost deported to his country, in spite of all the services he has provided. Or what about Yolanda Barona, a mother who had to leave both of her children behind after being deported to Mexico after she was 50? As you can imagine, she was devastated. Immigrants are subjected to mistreatment and being taken advantage of, chased and deported on the minute-to-minute basis, despite their age. For most people, Mother's Day is a celebration day. But for the Dreamers Group monks, it takes on a whole different meaning. They have to go to the section of the wall in Tijuana with pictures of their children and chairs that say in the back, "Hey, have you seen my child?" That is pretty cruel. Mothers and fathers shouldn't watch their relative drown in the Florida stretch if they're coming from Cuba, or the Rio Grande if they're coming from Mexico or Central America. Sometimes they even have to make the choice between having to save their wife or their mom or one of their two children. I have heard stories about that. Children should not be separated from their parents. Some of them won't be picked up at school today, at least not by their parents. Instead, they might want that.
I'm designed to teach.
Sorry.
Instead, they might wind up sleeping on a hard and cold floor on a detention center, going through all kinds of human rights violations, hungry, sick, and living among infestation. Sexual and physical abuse are part of this equation too. We're talking about toddlers and babies, for God's sake, and they're dying with there too. We're only trying to stay here in order to get back what was taken from us in our respective countries: Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Cuba, and more. 60 and 70 years ago, and before that too, the US intervened in our countries in order to protect their economic interests that in turn have bear even more fruit. Cheap labor that does not get recognized, more potential for prison population, detention center material that corporates can run. They represent about $750 per head each night. Therefore, no more deportation, no more separation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that speech. We appreciate that. Thank you. As you all know, immigration is a touchy subject right now in America, and we needed that. We really did. When you look on the news and you see kids being locked up for just trying to come to a better place and get out of their country where it's something going wrong or it might not be what they think it is, and they're trying to come to America to get better opportunities. So it's really crazy to see children being locked up. It's crazy to see kids being separated from their parents, and I think we really just needed that speech. We really needed to see from the other side, from the other perspective, because the president, he puts it out there like immigrants are coming here to take jobs and they taking money and food out of our pockets, when that's not true. And if you really think about it, the president is an immigrant itself. So that's the crazy part. But I don't want to talk too much about that. We can talk about that another time. We're gonna get on with the program. Next, we have another local celebrity in his own right, a community organizer, a policy advocate, And he's also the 2019 Elder Freeman Policy Fellowship Awardee. So that means we got some money in the room, y'all. I think I might ask him, can I borrow $20 or something? Y'all give a warm welcome to Paul Bryan, please.
How y'all doing today?
It's all right. Talk directly into it. Just talk.
Can y'all hear me?
Loudly. Speak louder.
What am I talking today is mass incarceration. Can y'all hear me now?
This one's a little louder.
I'm speaking on mass incarceration and the attack on our democracy. And I'm glad that Professor Godfrey and Dr. King spoke on slavery, because you can't speak on mass incarceration without speaking about slavery. And I like to use the example of the Louisiana State Prison in Angola. This prison, there's a significance in the name. It's named after a former plantation. And it's actually built on the same land as a former plantation. This leads me to believe that slavery still exists. Till this day, prisons in Angola are still picking cotton. Now, when you construct a prison on the same land as a plantation, this makes certain identities the consequence of in the vehicle for individual vulnerabilities. This is the perfect example of intersecting systems of power and the effect of power on a particular group of people, historically black people. The legal system has an interest in a particular group of people, and the correlations are evident. Slave catchers became police, slaves became prisoners, and when you're trying to build off of that system, there will never be equality for everybody in the society, especially people of color. And as I segue to the attack on our democracy, the establishment of the United States that framed as it's created equal for all people is false. Thomas Jefferson first said that when he was drafting his speech for the Declaration in 1776, that all men are created equal. But that was during a time when slavery still existed. So it's not possible for all men to be created equal from his, definition. And he went on to say that people of color are inferior to whites. He says that there's a suspicion, there's an innate difference. Now, slavery existed all over the world in various types and various ways, but the idea that skin color, questions somebody's mental state and their physicals, that was a new ideology. Now, when you just think of that alone, hold up, y'all, you know what I mean? For those who don't know what felony disenfranchisement is, it is one among the collateral consequences of criminal conviction and the loss of rights due to conviction for criminal offenses. Meaning that when slavery was over, they were still able to oppress people of color by criminal convictions. And voting, meaning if you had a conviction, you were no longer able to vote. You were no longer able to participate in this democracy. And in California today, if you have a felony, you're not able to vote. And if you're allowed to pay taxes, but you can't choose who represents you on a local level, or how your rights are being represented. And if you're allowed, that goes back to the British Tea Party, you know what I mean? That's what that was all about, taxation without representation. If people are paying taxes, they should be able to vote. If they're safe enough to be let back in society, why can't they vote? Yeah. And people on probation are allowed to vote, but people on parole are not allowed to vote. You can be on probation in county, locked up, and still have the right to vote. And that right there is an inconsistency. And we need to. My organization is working on a measure called ACA 6, and that's a California constitutional amendment to put on the ballot for. It just got delayed, but hopefully we can push this through next year to be on the ballot to give people the right to vote in California who are on parole.
Yeah.
Because, you know, our democracy should include everybody. And our democracy will continue to make little progress as long as the dynamics of its empirical matrix are sacrificed in favor of an authoritarian regime. And everybody should be absorbed in the population. I don't think it's fair that we have working citizens, we have brothers, we have sisters that are safe enough to be led in society but can't vote. So I would just recommend everybody to, you know, look out for ACA 6. It should be on the ballot, and, you know, to vote for that.
Thank you so much, Paul. Paul Riley is with the All of Us or None and Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. So let's give him a hand. How many of you heard that in Florida they passed a law that former felons get to vote? Raise your hand if you had heard about that. In the midterms election, when lots of young people did come out after people were upset, people were like, oh my God, this is what happens when we don't vote, so maybe I better vote after Trump got elected. That was a coalition of Black former incarcerated people, Latino formerly incarcerated people, Asian, Native American, and white worked together and passed a law that enfranchised. How many people did that end up giving? 1.2 million people all of a sudden became able to vote. And which is wonderful. But did you hear what happened after that? The legislature, so the people voted. The people voted to give the right to people who had already served their time and who are now out of jail. But the state legislature in Florida then turned around and passed a law that they have to pay their restitution first in order to get their vote. Did you know that people have to pay for their own imprisonment? Those of us who have friends and family in the system know that. But a lot of people don't know that. They make us pay for our own incarceration. And then they're using that against people who have won the right to vote. In Florida, you know how hard it was to organize people in Florida to pass that? That Florida's not the most progressive state. Sorry, Florida. I just want to say that by people coming together, we can change things. We can get the right to vote for everybody. We can get a democratic society. But we cannot accept the status quo. We cannot be afraid to speak out. We cannot be afraid for people to label us a troublemaker. Because we need to make some trouble. We in trouble. We're in trouble. We got to make trouble for somebody else in order to change it. Okay. I want to just say this is co-sponsored by the Associated Students of Laney College. So let's give them a hand. Karen is the president. It's sponsored by the Laney Poor People's Campaign Teaching Committee, the Women's Economic Agenda Project, Umoja Ubaka. Let's give a hand for Umoja Ubaka. And we're going to hear from some Umoja students later today who did a presentation just for this teach-in. And also Parent Voices Oakland, Tapestry Ministry, and the Legal Women Voters is up there registering voters. So please do that. Our next speaker is London Crowdy from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. Welcome, London Crowdy.
Hello everyone, thank you all for inviting me into your space. I feel like I finally made it to school, college, thank you. So my name is London Crowdy and I'm formerly incarcerated. During my prison sentence, not unlike others, I worked on myself, programmed and eagerly waited for my past to just do away, to continue with my future. Yes, I made poor choices, but I'm not the sum total of my mistake. Now that I'm back in society, I've been working hard to rebuild my life. A part of rebuilding my life is feeling like I belonging to my community. Felony disenfranchisement is a crisis of democracy, and it is sad to see that even in 2019, remnants of Jim Crow and voter suppression is still present and affecting millions of Americans, most notable people of color. Felony disenfranchisement laws are a strategic avenue supported by special interest groups to continue the political marginalization of Black and brown communities across the country. For generations, felony disenfranchisement laws have weakened the political power and suppressed the voices of Black and brown communities. When All of Us or None was created in 2003, we incorporated voting rights as a top 3 priority. This is not a new fight. The fight for reenfranchisement has been going on for years. Most recently, we co-sponsored an Assembly Constitutional Amendment, ACA 6, which will restore voting rights for roughly 50,000 people in the state of, currently on parole in the state of California. This initiative will put this on the 2020 ballot, allowing California voters to decide whether or not it's time to do away with voter suppression. You know, I talk and work with folks who are formerly incarcerated and share a lot of similarities. We share similarities with you all as well. Like, we have to pay taxes, and if we break the law, we have to suffer repercussions as well. But there is one big difference. I'm formerly incarcerated and I can vote. A lot of folks that I meet in the state of California that are formerly incarcerated cannot vote. Why? You may be wondering yourself. It's because I've done federal time, and most people I talk to currently and I meet have done state time. Prison is prison. When I spoke to the state legislators and brought this to their attention, oftentimes they weren't even aware of this, and they were confused. When sharing this information with folks, some have tried to make sense of this, but have been unsuccessful because it simply does not make any sense. It's another billboard picture of the unjust system. For various reasons, ACA 6 was not taken up in the California Senate by September 13th, the last day to hear the bill before the Senate adjourned. This means that ACA 6 is now a 2-year bill, and we will continue our fight to restore voting rights for people on parole in January 2020 when the legislature reconvenes. Thank you again for allowing me your space.
That was really powerful. Let's give her a hand, Laney College. And I just want to say, there's handouts in the back, or there's flyers. So there's a new film called Suppressed, The Fight to Vote. It's a new film by Robert Greenwald. It says if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying to stop it. Now, I used to kind of feel like, voting, who cares? You know, like, voting's not the way. I need to get out in the streets. That's what I need to do to change things. But then I started thinking about it. Why are they trying to pass all these laws to stop you from voting? It does matter. And locally, as Mike Hutchinson mentioned, it matters even more. The Electoral College kind of suppresses our vote. So this Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Grand Lake Theater. This Sunday, 10 a.m. at the Grand Lake Theater is the Oakland premiere of this film called Suppress the Right to Vote. I encourage y'all to attend it. We can talk more about it. And now Terrence Williams is going to continue with the program.
I want y'all to give another hand for London Crowdy, please. I was much needed as well. We really appreciate your point of view, London. And I want to acknowledge London for also being a 2019 Elder Freeman Policy Fellowship awardee after demonstrating her strength and passion working towards equity for those currently and formerly incarcerated in the U.S. And that's all we're really looking for is equity, honestly. Yes. So next we're going to move on with the Poor People's Campaign teaching, and we're going to be speaking about public education and part-time issues. We have Professor Adele Ray here. She's a part of the Peralta for Peralta Federation of Teachers, and she's also a part-time professor at Berkeley City College, teaching production courses. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Terrence. Thanks for emceeing, and thank you, Dr. King. I'm actually humbled being on this panel, so thank you. I just said I'm humbled to be on this panel.
You are.
Higher education is in crisis between the increased corporatization of the university, defunding of public education, and the push for for-profit online institutions. There is a new faculty majority of part-time labor who are underpaid and without benefits and living in constant survival mode. These are your faculty. All of these, they make up 70%, 75% of the faculty in the Peralta system. And Laney. All of these factors contribute to the erosion of a quality of education for our students, for you guys. The academic institutions across the country for decades have failed these faculty and in turn have failed their students and communities. I just want to show this trailer that kind of highlights the issue with individuals. It's called Professors and Poverty. It's just a minute trailer to give you an idea.
I'm designed to teach. People see an educator, professional, an author, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. Then they see 20-something years of teaching. I have the highest level of learning you can get, and I am literally over here on welfare.
Adjuncts are the lowest paid people on campus.
Adjunct professors are rarely guaranteed work, and they don't qualify for benefits from universities.
To support his family, he drives to 3 different Ohio universities to teach 6 English classes.
$13,200 a year. That's not a living wage.
I don't want some student to say, I want to be just like you, professor. I want to go after my doctorate. Be like me. I'm broke.
It has gone in the direction of big business, of hiring more and more part-timers to do the work of full-timers.
The cure for it is so simple. Just pay them a wage.
We need to rethink how we think about education.
I love teaching, so I haven't given up on this dream yet.
I want to address 3 challenges that we face and how these challenges have affected their lives within the Peralta system here. At Laney, BCC, Berkeley City College, Merritt College, and College of Alameda. We get paid less on the dollar than our full-time faculty counterparts. So if I'm doing the same hour of work, I get paid, depending on my rank, it can be anywhere from 70 to 90% less. So I'd be getting 70 cents on the dollar. That adds up over time. And it's also about a respect thing. You know, it's like, oh, 5 cents here, 5 cents there, if it was 95 cents on the dollar, but then you think about it, it's like, why am I getting paid 5 cents less? It's just a respect thing. Lack of health insurance. Out of the, we have 750 part-time faculty, and only 60 of them use the health insurance here because it's completely unaffordable. And lack of job security. Our classes can get canceled at any moment, and we might have great classes. Our people want to enroll in the classes. I might even have a full class, and it could get bumped to give it to a full-timer, even though I did deserve it. And so I can lose a class that way, or there could be an arbitrary number. Like they'll say, we want to fill 20 students, and say a professor only has 16, it gets cut. That's happened to one of our faculty, and they ended up having health issues, and they couldn't afford the insurance because they didn't have their class, and they ended up almost losing their house that was here in Peralta. A lot of faculty end up going to the emergency room. They go without insurance, or if they're lucky and they have a spouse, they can get on their spouse's insurance, or they just go into debt and have housing insecurity because they're paying for their health insurance if they have health issues. What can we do about these issues? I mean, it's kind of a hard situation, and this is not just here, it's nationwide, as you see here. It's in public education, but it's also in private institutions. So I was at a private institution in New York, and we had a union, and we got our rights, we got insurance, we got a bunch of stuff. And so now I was disenfranchised as a faculty member and was about to just quit, try to create another union because I didn't know if I was being represented properly in my faculty union at the Peralta Federation of Teachers. I entertained the thought and had conversations with other faculty about breaking from the union so that we could be represented properly. I mean, I was ready to blow it out of the water, But then I realized that breaking the union is destructive and not constructive. And that union actually cared about my needs as a part-timer. The problem was the lack of representation within the union on the executive council to fight for the needs of the part-timer, even though they were trying to, but you need representation. And so I spoke my truth, I critiqued the system, I try to seek solutions, whether it be breaking it and restarting or whatever. And I realized that through the democratic process, with other part-time faculty and full-time faculty, I was elected to be on the union council. So and I helped with the part-time faculty caucus. I started a part-time faculty caucus, and we elected more part-time faculty representation. So now our union has part-time faculty representation. This year, this just happened, and we are doing actions, and I'm working with our diversity chair on our council, Dr. King, to have a unity campaign. And so if you hear this word, the unity campaign, we're gonna have events with, to talk about these teach-ins, about these issues, and come up with solutions to bring up our part-timers. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Adele Ray. Ina Adele Ray is with the Peralta Federation of Teachers. She is a rep for Berkeley City College. And some of us were at the Board of Trustees last night until 9:30 p.m. trying to get equal pay for equal work for part-time faculty. Our administration said that they were too busy to give the bargaining team the information on how much it would cost to give full parity. They couldn't even provide it to us. They said they're too busy. I had to be here at 8 o'clock this morning after staying there till 9:30. I'm not getting paid for this or for that. This is stuff I'm doing out of my volunteer. So, I mean, I love it. I do it because I love it. I do it because of the students. And
thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you guys. No, thank you guys. Because it's the only job I could do. Let me turn it over to Terrence Williams.
Y'all give a hand clap for Dr. King. I need to feel y'all energy. I feel like y'all going to sleep up in here. We need to be energetic about this. This is real issues. Some of y'all favorite professors are part-time faculty, and y'all probably don't even know it, thinking that they tenured, thinking that they have a career in this, but they're in the same boat as you, living paycheck to paycheck, and that's a shame. Your professor is living paycheck to, we all can't live paycheck to paycheck. Somebody gotta get the money. In a minute, we all gonna be sleeping in here together. We gonna be waking up to classes and professors together. They trying to cut out what is important. If we want quality education, we gotta pay for quality education. Am I right? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But next on the program, we have a housing and homelessness presentation from one of our great professors here at Laney College from her African American Studies 31 class, Professor Grisby. We have some students from her class doing a housing and homeless presentation. Please give them a hand.
Okay, my name is Kenneth. We're in Ms. Grisby's class, African American History. Okay. But emoji class student. Okay. For our focus, it's African American history onwards. And we're going to start with the end of Civil War and the Reconstruction period, with the contribution to the Black African American struggle, suppression, and poverty of the African American community. White supremacy, racist ideology that is based upon the belief that white people are the superior race and shall dominate societies. This abject idea paved the way for the creation of the oppressive, systematic form of dehumanization of African people for many centuries. The end of slavery, end of slavery, but the economy quickly shifted from slavery to sharecropping. This is a form of tenant farming. During this area, African American people needed a place to live and work. Sharecropping was a way for white plantation owners to have their crops tended to, just like during slavery. Only this time, they're charged black people to live and use farming tools and trick black people into thinking they could earn money. The rising tide of immigration from Europe hurt northern African Americans economically. Before 1820, black craftsmen had been in demand, but given the choice, white people preferred to employ other white people, and black people suffered. To make matters worse for African Americans, white workers excluded young black men from apprentices, refused to work with black people, and used violence to prevent employers from hiring black workers when white workers was unemployed. By the 1830s, these practices had driven African Americans from the skilled trades. From slavery to segregation, African Americans have been systematically denied equal rights and opportunities. The effects of long-standing discrimination linger and perpetuate disparities in poverty, housing, criminal justice, and healthcare, among other areas. These disparities in turn can contribute to more African Americans experiencing homelessness. Slavery. General Sherman promised 40 acres and a mule to free slaves. In the end, less than 1% and 3,500 received their allotment. With very few African Americans able to gain land and assets to give their children, there is now a home ownership gap where 27% more whites have homes than African Americans, up from 23% in 1940. Home Deal. New Deal programs helped white people become home owners, but African Americans were considered financial risks and not given loans and federal money to become suburban homeowners. Of the $120 billion of government-backed loans to new homeowners between 1934 and 1962, 98% went to white people.
Hi everybody, my name is Talaja. So basically I'm talking about the main causes of homelessness. For one, we're talking about the veterans, and I believe that they shouldn't be homeless because they protect us, you know? They shouldn't be homeless. And then the emergency racism, unequal access to jobs and housing, unregulated capitalism, to several economic downturn, unemployment near 40%, immigration, and train hoppers. The causes of homelessness today is racism, poverty, because people don't allow people of color to live in their properties because they think we're going to mess it up or destroy whatever that they have. Lack of public assistance, unemployment, which is the biggest one, mental illness, and substance abuse. And some more is racial inequality, gentrification, where they're moving into our homes and kicking us out and making the prices higher for us not to pay for our rent. System bias and policies, housing discrimination, and incarceration.
Thank you. I'm Mary Asho. With the presentation, we've seen that homelessness was not born yesterday. It went back to the colonial period and went through maybe about 5 periods through the Great Depression, the urbanization, and to the contemporary period. So we can see the trend that it continues with we can see that homelessness, the contribution towards homelessness started way back in history. the suppression, the poverty, that the housing discrimination, racial inequality, all contributed to homelessness. So we've come up with some solutions. We thought that there has to be collective commitment in dismantling racism. We have to reverse unjust racial disparities in our policies and system. We have to challenge the existing ideology, the current existing ideology, because homelessness continues to rise. And so we have to relook at the existing ideologies. Why is it not working? So there's a challenge to that. We have to prevent, reduce, and transform. In transform, we mean changes that needs to happen in structural homelessness. The policies, regulations, practices, belief systems that addresses homelessness in a particular way. Also addressing all the injustices that cause suffering to all our people everywhere. And lastly, empowerment and awareness to our young generation. Yes, you and me today, we can make a stop to this. Be part of the solution in preventing, reducing, and transforming homelessness. Thank you.
I'll give another warm welcome, please. A warm round of applause to your schoolmates, please. We need more of our schoolmates to do things like that and stand up for things that they believe in as well, because as you can see, homelessness has been going on since 1865, and it's only going to continue if we don't do something to stand up for affordable housing for everyone. As y'all can see, Oakland is turning into something that I've never seen before. People are getting kicked out of their homes, having to move to Fresno and Sacramento and even further than that. So I really think this is something that we should stand for and stand up for. Affordable housing is the right that everybody deserves, honestly. I'm gonna let Dr. King introduce the next group though, if she wants.
Yes, hello. Our next, that class with Professor Dana Grisby is part of the Umoja Ubaka Student Success Community. I happen to be the coordinator of that program in addition to teaching psychology. Terrence is a part of that program, and all those students you just saw. We are an African American student success program that is open to students of all backgrounds. We do emphasize the heritage and socio-political issues related to Black students, but a lot of those relate to all working class students and all working class people.